We're joined now by the UK's Environment Secretary, George Eustice. Thank you very much for being with us. I hope you were listening to the Simon Coveney interview. He said that the EU won't do a trade deal. There's unanimous agreement on that if the UK government tries to restore measures to the internal market bill which break the law. Are you going to try and do that?
Yes, we will be putting those measures back because they are very important. They just really bring clarity to mechanisms that are already in the withdrawal agreement. There's already an Article 16 that enables us to act unilaterally when we need to in order to protect the economy of Northern Ireland. And in addition as well, there's a commitment to good faith, which obviously we need the ability to implement.
So Simon Coveney just told me there is an absolutely unanimous view that if the UK decides to break international law, then why would the EU agree to a deal? You've just said you are going to try and restate those parts of the internal market bill. So should we assume that there's just not going to be a deal?
Well, no, I think the truth is if there is an agreement, then it supersedes really this whole debate. And that's the point that Simon Coveney was making.
He just said there won't be an agreement.
No, but if there is an agreement, then the types of issues that are causing this problem, things like export declarations and tariffs and one or two other areas.
He's just told me that there won't be an agreement.
Well, if there's not an agreement, then these powers will be needed. If there is an agreement, they won't be needed. And I think he conceded that point as well. And that's why what both sides have actually got to do is focus on getting a withdrawal agreement. We've got a withdrawal agreement, getting a free trade, future partnership agreement in place. And once that's done, then the types of measures that we needed to have there to be able to offer legal clarity in the event that there's no further agreement, well, then those will not be necessary.
How likely do you think it is that we are going to get a trade deal?
Well, it's quite difficult. There are remaining really two sticking points, one around state aid, where the EU are effectively asking the UK to remain bound by their system, by their state aid rules, and that's really unprecedented for an independent country to do that. And secondly, of course, around fishing, where it is a feature of international law that a country has control of its exclusive economic zone. That's out to 200 miles or the halfway point. That's what Norway do. It's what every other country in the world does. Indeed, it's even what the EU have. And it's absolutely right that the UK should control its exclusive economic zone as it leaves the EU.
Fishing, of course, as you say, is a huge sticking point. Simon Coveney just said that it is absolutely possible that we get to a no-deal situation over fishing. The Sunday Times reports that Britain wants to reserve at least half of the fish in British waters for UK boats. The EU says it should be less than 20%. I mean, it sounds like you're miles apart here.
Well, there is some way between us. I think the principal thing is that the European Union seem to believe that they could have, at the moment, they're arguing that they should have sort of effectively eternal access, to our waters, and that shouldn't be varied from one year to the next. And that's obviously quite a difficult sticking point. And yes, it's the case that at the moment we have about half of the fish in our own waters. The other half are given away to the EU. We want something that's more balanced, that's more scientific, that's based on what's called zonal attachment, which is where the fish actually are to be found and reside. That's a sensible, modern, scientific way to share stocks. And yes, the EU obviously have enjoyed a lot of access to our water in the past and have taken quite a lot of fish out of our waters. I suppose it's natural that they'd want to continue that, but they do have to accept that there are certain consequences from the UK leaving the EU and becoming an independent country again.
On this programme, I've spoken to fishermen in Grimsby, Hastings, Whitstable, who feel that the EU has effectively decimated their industry. So I really want to emphasise that I do understand why it's such a totemic issue. But it also makes up less than 0.1% of the UK economy. Are we really going to blow up the possibility of a Brexit deal over fishing?
Well, it's very important to coastal communities up and down the country. And it is the case that British fishing was damaged by our entry into the European Union and that the common fisheries policy has been a disaster. And there is an important point here. Would it be right for the UK the fifth largest economy in the world, to be the only country in the world that doesn't control its own waters. I think that would be wrong. There's an important principle here as well, which is the right and the ability to manage and control access to your exclusive economic zone. It's what every other country in the world has. It's an international legal norm.
So I'm interested to know a little bit about when you think the deadline for a deal is going to be. Simon Coveney is saying that there'll be real problems if one isn't done this week. Is that right?
Well, I think both sides recognise that time is very, very short. It's not long ago we were saying we needed to get some kind of conclusion by the middle of October, and people have persevered with these talks. There does come a point, frankly, where businesses need to know what they are preparing for. And
does it need to be this week?
We're not going to be... Well, you can always squeeze out extra time if you need to, if you're nearly there. But I agree with Simon Coveney. Perhaps we can agree on this much. This needs to be a week when things move, when we break through some of these difficult issues and get a resolution, and at least have some sort of headlines, if you like, of an agreement. Otherwise it gets quite difficult and we do start to run out of time to implement it.
OK, good to see a bit of agreement with Simon Coveney, because it doesn't appear that you've agreed on that much else on the programme this morning.
We can agree on the timings. If not, who should move? Yeah.
Exactly. Is it easier to get a deal done without Dominic Cummings?
Well, look, the negotiations have been led by David Frost from the beginning. He's got a very talented, experienced team of technical experts around him. He's led these negotiations from the start and obviously remains in place and continues to do so. So I don't actually think the departure of Dominic Cummings makes any particular impact on the negotiations since Lord Frost has been leading those.
Has, of course, been a pretty extraordinary week, though, a distracting week as well. I just want to look at some of the briefing that's been coming out of Number 10, because it's some of the most toxic that I can remember. Carrie Symonds referred to as Princess Nut Nut. This about Lee Cain, a rude, needlessly abrasive, insecure clown with no brain for government. This about Dominic Cummings. That's the last time he walks down the road like Kim Kardashian, preening for the cameras like the spoilt lord of Barnard Castle. I mean, this is toxic soap opera stuff. What's your reaction been when you've seen what people are saying in Number 10? Have you been embarrassed? Have you been incredulous? Have you been angry?
Well, look, it is inevitable that when you get episodes like this, there will always be a lot of intense media interest in the gossip of who said what to who and rival briefings and so forth. And of course, that finds, particularly fertile ground in the Sunday papers above all else.
Come on, sorry, I'm going to come in there because it's so predictable that you blame the media for it, but it's coming out of Number 10. It's coming out of some of the most senior figures in Number 10. The Prime Minister has just lost two of his closest aides. I just think it's unfair just to say this is just the Sunday papers doing what they always do. What's your human reaction been to it? Because you must have had one.
Well, look, I'm not blaming the Sunday papers. Clearly, if colourful turns of phrase like that are relayed in anonymous background briefings, of course people will use them and they will write stories with them. I'm just saying that for me, as a cabinet minister, and every other cabinet minister is the same, we've been getting on with our jobs this week. I've put forward an agriculture bill that's got royal assent this week.
You must have been shocked, though.
Work on the spending review continues. We're making good progress on vaccines, and that's preoccupying Matt Hancock. For those of us in the cabinet, we don't tend to immerse ourselves in the gossip of who said what to whom on episodes such as this. OK.
This gossip, as you say, this distraction is happening in the middle of a pandemic, just as Brexit talks enter the most crucial stage. As you say, there's lots going on, spending review, etc. Some would say the blame lies with the Prime Minister. He's the person in charge. He sets the tone. Does he need to take some responsibility for the fact that his staff are tearing strips off each other?
Well, look, I think what I would say here, I've known Dominic Cummings myself for many years. He's got many great strengths, and one of them is winning campaigns. And he tends to apply himself in short bursts, short tours of duty on big strategic changes, such as the 2016 referendum results, such as the 2019 general election, and he's very talented at that. But look, it's always the Prime Minister's prerogative who will be their key advisors. The Prime Minister has to have a team around him that he's comfortable with, that works well to get the right balance. And it's always the case that Prime Ministers can change their advisors and change the mix of their advisors.
Some would say that part of the issue is that the Prime Minister hasn't been decisive enough previously. He offered Lee Cain the Chief of Staff job, then it didn't happen. He put out a statement saying he would stay until the new year, Lee Cain, and then 2 days later he asked him to leave Downing Street. Is this a Prime Minister who just agrees with whoever the last person he spoke to was?
No, I think that's unfair. This is a Prime Minister who's dealing with some extraordinary challenges facing our country with this global pandemic, and he's having to make multiple decisions every week about an emerging situation in this most difficult of challenges. So I don't accept this charge that the Prime Minister is indecisive. He's making decisions all the time, but he and leaders right around the world are operating clearly in a very difficult context.
OK, a difficult context, certainly. Should we move on to that difficult context, the pandemic, of course, COVID-19, something that is hugely on the mind of all of our viewers and all of ours. The news that the Pfizer vaccine is 90% effective has been a real boost this week. We're also, of course, expecting the Oxford-AstraZeneca results to be posted in the next few weeks. Could we start seeing a vaccine being rolled out before Christmas?
Well, it's possible, and the Chief Medical Officer has said that there's a possibility you could start deploying the vaccine before Christmas, but we mustn't get our hopes up. There is still more to do. The UK on the Pfizer vaccine has already got access to 40 million doses. Some of those are already being manufactured. All of these vaccines, there's several different candidates now, are in the final approval stages. Obviously, we need to make sure that they are safe to use, and there's a rigorous approval process for that reason. But yes, there has been some encouraging progress on a number of vaccines, not least the Pfizer one. And I think it does, open out the prospect that we can start to roll out that vaccine, particularly in the early part of next year. And hopefully this will help us turn the corner on this very difficult pandemic during the course of next summer.
It's so great to have a bit of light potentially at the end of the tunnel. But as you say, big logistical challenges too. The sheer number of people who need to be vaccinated, also the fact that the Pfizer vaccine needs to be stored at such low temperatures. Just after your interview, we'll show a short film that I did about vaccines. I spoke to the leader of Imperial's vaccine team, who said that we're unlikely to really see a return to normality until next summer, that we'll need social distancing, face masks, etc., probably until halfway through next year. Do you think that's right?
Well, I think it's very difficult to predict. Obviously, at the moment, we're in this current set of restrictions, a second lockdown, if you like. That's going to be reviewed at the end of this month. And on the 2nd of December, new steps will come into place. There will need to be, undoubtedly, some sort of restrictions from the 2nd of December for a little while. But it's too early to judge yet exactly what those particular restrictions will be. And, of course, the thing to remember is once you get into spring and summer, the weather conditions become less conducive to the spread of the virus. That's what we saw happening last year. And so the combination of the deployment of a vaccine and the arrival of summer does offer quite a lot of hope that we can really start to get this virus under control.
Fingers crossed, certainly. Just finally, this week marks a bit of a reset for the Prime Minister. We're expecting the environment to be a big focus of the sort of New Look government, if you like. You've got an announcement today on parks. Is this all part of the New Look administration?
Well, this has actually been part of the government agenda from the beginning. When I was appointed, the Prime Minister said he really wanted me to focus on issues like climate change. It's a big challenge facing the whole world, and also to improve nature, wildlife and our natural environment. So what we've committed to do is to protect 30% of our landscapes by 2030, and we'll be doing that by rolling out additional national parks and areas of outstanding natural beauty and other protected areas too, and managing them better so that we can really build back habitats and wildlife in some of these protected sites.
OK, George Eustice, thank you very much for coming on the programme today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.